Good afternoon and welcome to the Embedded Executive Podcast. My name is Rich Ness. I am with Embedded Computing Design. And this week, my guest is John Weil. He is the Vice President and General Manager for IoT and Edge AI processors at Synaptics. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Rich, for having me again.
My pleasure. Edge AI, this stuff's really taken off between you guys and your competitors. We're just seeing a huge ramp. Is that expected, or is it going more than you would have anticipated at this point?
Expected and even to a certain degree more. If you had asked me that question 2.5 years ago, I'd have said there's a lot of speculation. About a year ago, customers were, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be left behind. And then this year, we're seeing customers with, active projects in a rush to figure out how they take advantage of the technology that we all have access to today.
One of the things I know that you guys are different about than some of the other folks, we've seen a lot of the OEMs just doing the checkbox thing where, oh yeah, my box is AI, where it's very debatable whether they just have what is a smart device as opposed to an AI device, whereas you guys are actually doing real AI, which I certainly commend you for.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time thinking about this. It's of course a core value for our company. We think about how do we build different compute elements into the product to manage today's models and AI models coming in the future. And we've talked about that a bit in the past, or we've talked about partnering with the folks in deep research across the industry and making sure that we're looking ahead at what is needed in the silicon products and what's needed in the software tools. And that helps shape how we develop our products.
Okay. So what led me to asking you to come onto the podcast actually is a post that you pushed out over LinkedIn, and and I want to make sure I understand exactly what you're saying. And I'm summarizing a pretty long post into 2 sentences. Too many people are pushing a cloud model into a smaller device. It is really a multimodal orchestration problem. What does that mean?
So, today you can find dozens of open source models that do a variety of tasks. And we have a lot of customers that come to us and say, what is the performance of model X or model Y on your chip, in this use case? And a lot of times what we find is they start out with that because it's open source, they can get it, but it was really built for a different purpose. It was built with big compute in mind. And then they're trying to jam it onto what we would traditionally call an embedded device, maybe still a processor class device, but still, they come in with these lofty expectations of, hey, we want to be able to do this amount of AI processing in something with this big an envelope. And my answer normally is, well, it's kind of the wrong approach. You're taking a Swiss Army knife into the problem when there's a variety of smaller models that can run very efficiently on the device. And if we orchestrate them correctly, you get the same output. So, you can get a single model that can process a lot of different modalities, or you can have a variety of models that are more tuned for the task at hand. And then you orchestrate those across your different compute elements. So an example might be very common today, speech to text. Okay. There are language models that can do speech to text inherently in it as well. But the tuning of speech to text and getting that human nature to it is way easier if you focus on just that problem and run that as a particular model, feeding some kind of language model or intelligence model behind the scenes, and then coming back. So this is something that we at Synaptics have been working on for almost a year now, of how do we really get that natural speech interaction with a human, but do it in a footprint that is way smaller than what people believe. Can you do that with these big cloud models? Yes. You can push it down, but the performance is mediocre. So if you
Now,
orchestrate the problem, you get a much better experience.
it might be obvious, but what are the advantages of going that route?
One is instead of having a model that is fine-tuned, I'm going to give very generics here, but I think your audience will get it then. Instead of having a model that understands English, Korean, Japanese, Romance languages, etc., you fine-tune that model to the task at hand, and that model may actually be an English model that has a medical or engineering background to it. So it understands the slang better. It understands the nuances of speech within that particular demographic or that dialect even. One of the fun ones we've been working on is Japanese, Northern Japan versus Southern Japan, right? There's variances, and building models that can understand those nuances is easier if you break that model down into just that task and then have other models that are processing the results of that task. Make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. A perfect example. One of my neighbors is from Tennessee, and I'm constantly saying, "What did you say? What did you say?" Because I just don't understand the accent.
Yeah. I mean, even English, right? It's very varied all around the world, and it's fun watching the models process what we do naturally. But you can build a billion parameter model that does it really well, or you can build a less than 100 million parameter model that does it phenomenally well if you constrain what it needs to think about.
Now, are you saying that open source is not the right way to go to solve this problem? I don't want to mischaracterize what you said.
No, I wouldn't say that. What I would say is, and if potential customers or listeners here on the call is, it's very easy to fall into the trap that you can get a model very easily, get it up and running, and then spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to squeeze that into your budget. There's nothing wrong with the open source models from a proof of concept point of view, and to figure out, can you build a product that's cool? But when you get ready to go to production, there's a variety of commercial and open source combinations that you can use where you don't need to have such a big envelope, right? You're going to break the bank, right?
Are you seeing what I described earlier as the checkbox where people are saying, "Okay, I'll go open source because this is good enough and allows me to check the box"?
We see a bit of that. I think, remember I said earlier, ask me almost 3 years ago, ask me a year ago. What we're seeing now is customers are under pressure to get something quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost just faster to grab some of the open source stuff and just go quick and throw extra compute at the problem. But
Yep.
that I don't think is scalable long term.
And it's more expensive, obviously.
And it's more, but expense, power, frankly, memory. If you've been in the memory business lately, the last thing you want is a very large model requiring a lot of memory.
That's a taboo subject right now. Don't want more memory. So let you put in a plug here. I know you guys are doing some phenomenal things with Google. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Google I/O is recent. I'll let your listeners go and poke around and listen to the keynotes there. Synaptics participated in that keynote with our latest SL2610 product line. If you Google, I forget how you say it, Jellytronica or something like that, look it up. It's fun. It's a great little use case showing how AI at the edge can do multiple modalities using vision systems and generating audio from what it sees. It was a fun little exercise. We've been working with them on the upcoming Coral board, the Synaptics Coral board, in a partnership with the Google research team, and that was unveiled originally at Embedded World, and then we worked with Google I/O to push some more out there, and coming soon, hopefully, to the masses. So that's what I'd say. Stay tuned and watch for more. And then, of course, there's really some great stuff coming. When I talked in that post, I was kind of alluding to, this, this orchestration. If you think about what's the next kind of bleeding edge technology, we're going to need to be able to process a lot of different input stimuluses. So when you think about moving into this physical AI world and you're starting to get new data and the models are reacting to data maybe they haven't seen before, that compute envelope needs to be scalable at the edge, tiny edge maybe, or however far out you put it. And that's one of the really interesting research sides, is what can we deliver in that space in the coming months and years. So stay tuned. I think you'll see some really interesting things that use this orchestration concept that I was talking about.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, John. I appreciate you coming on and helping clarify for me and for everybody else, because it is a pretty complex subject. And as people say, oh, it's not that hard. It really is hard.
Yeah, it's new frontier for a lot of our embedded customers. Yeah, listeners here, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride for a while as we all learn how to do this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That was John Weil. He is the Vice President and General Manager for IoT and Edge AI processors for Synaptics, and I am Rich Nass with Embedded Computing Design.